Okay, I'm back with another TikTok live stream and I'm using the level 1 workbook. This is the workbook to go along with the conversational Korean grammar textbook. Right now we are up to G anta, which is this one right here. So last time we looked at an, and today we're going to be looking at G anta. These two grammar forms are quite similar, so they do a similar thing. So that's why we've kind of put them side by side. If you want to go back and check about an, you can of course always go back and watch the old recording. But today we're going to be using G anta. So this is a recap. This is all of the stuff that we've covered so far up until now, all the way through level 1A. And now we're in level 1B and we're going to be looking at G anta. Okay, so G anta is on page 72. All right. So what is G anta? Well, it's for making negative verbs. What does that mean? It just means that it's a verb that's in the negative form. For example, eat, the negative form is don't eat, or don't study, or don't exercise. So it's adding that don't meaning to verbs, is what the G anta form does. And this is kind of in its base form. When the present tense, it becomes G an a yo. So G anayo is what it becomes in the present tense. So given the following verbs, add G anta and conjugate each verb into the present tense, which is this form right here. All right, so conjugating G anta is actually very easy. So a lot of grammar forms in Korean are quite complicated to conjugate, but G anta is very, very simple. You always add the same thing. It doesn't matter what the verb has going on, doesn't matter if it's an irregular verb, anything like that, you always just stick on G anta. So it's very easy to do. Let's practice. So the first verb we have here is 먹다. Does anyone here know what the verb 먹다 means in Korean? I can zoom in a little bit, make it a little bit bigger. To eat, Lotte, thank you. Yes, 먹다 means to eat. And when you attach G anta, or you do, first thing is you take off the ta. That's always the first thing you do. So you take off the ta and just add G anta, and we're putting it into the present tense, so it becomes ayo. So it becomes 먹지 않아요, which means I don't eat something. Doesn't necessarily mean that you never eat. It just means that there's something that you don't eat. You don't eat whatever it is, chicken or beef or whatever it is. You don't eat it. Okay, B is 좋다. Does anyone know what this verb means in Korean? 좋다. Roxana, beautiful. Yes, good. Nice. Like. Anything like that. And to attach 좋지 않아요, so it becomes 촉, and then you add 지 않아요, which means it's not good. So notice how in Korean you can use the same grammar form, whether it's an action verb, things that you do like eating, drinking, etc. You can also use it for adjectives, descriptive verbs. Say something is not good. You can attach them to either. Okay, what about C? What does 보다 mean in Korean? Does anyone know? Can you use it with 고 싶다? Yes, absolutely, you can use it with 고 싶다. It becomes 고 싶지 않아요. That means I don't want to do something. Let me get out. So the 고 싶다 is the want to do part, and the don't part is the 지 않아요 part. And yes, 보다 means to see or to watch or to look at, anything like that. So how do we conjugate this with G anta? what does this become? Well, we start with our po, and then we add ji, an, and it becomes ayo. It always becomes ayo in the present tense, which means I don't see it, I don't watch it, anything like that. Okay, next we have 3 more. First we have this verb 괜찮다. Does anyone know what 괜찮다 means? Roxana, beautiful, yes. To be okay or to be fine. So how do we say I'm not fine? How would you say to someone I'm not okay? Well, you start with 괜, 찬, and then you add your negative form, 지, 안, 요. That means I'm not okay. I'm not alright. If someone asks you, 괜찮아요, are you okay? And if you are really hurt or if you're really sad, you can say, 괜찮지 않아요. I'm not okay. I'm not fine. Alright. What about this verb, 만들다? Is an more common or 지않다? That's a very good question. So an is a little bit more casual and it's a little bit more common in spoken language. 지않다 is slightly more formal and slightly more common in written language, but they're both used all the time. They're both used really, really frequently, and it kind of is mostly personal preference, I would say. But this one is slightly more formal and an is slightly more casual. What are the books? This is the book right here. It's kind of zoomed in right now, but it's called the Level 1 Workbook. It is linked in this live stream, and there is a link to it in our profile as well. And yes, 만들다 means to make. To make. And so how do we say I don't make something? How do you say I don't make something? It is 만들지 않아요. I don't make it. I don't make that. And lucky last, we have the verb 맛있다. What does the verb 맛있다 mean in Korean? Delicious, yes. Delicious or tasty, yummy, anything like that, to taste good. So how would you say it doesn't taste good? This does not taste good. How could you say that? You can say 맛, 맛있, so that's the first part, just minus ta, and then add your 지, 않아요. 맛있지 않아요. That means it doesn't taste good. It tastes bad. It doesn't taste good to me. I don't like it. Don't like the flavor. 맛있지 않아요. It's not good. It's not tasty. Okay, so we've done some conjugating practice. Now let's do some translating. Wait, there's a hair? What do you mean? Oh, I'm not sure. If there's hair, I did just get some kittens. So their hair is everywhere. What book is that? This is the Level 1 Workbook. This is the book right here. It is linked in this live stream. It's linked on our website and in our profile. Okay, so translating. Can you also say 맛 없습니다? Yes. So you can say 맛 없어요. That is the opposite verb of 맛있다. So 맛있다 means to be delicious. 맛 없다 means to taste bad. So there are, sort of 2 ways you can do it. Just like in English, you can say it's not tasty or it tastes bad. Same thing in Korean. You can say 맛있지 않아요. It tastes not good. You can also say 맛 없어요. It tastes bad. So both are fine. Okay. So translate from Korean into English. So given these Korean sentences, let's try to translate them into English. What do they mean? A is 저는 고기를 먹지 않아요. Okay, so we can probably recognize this, right? This is what we had earlier. 먹지 않아요 means I don't eat something. So what is this? What is 고기? Does anyone know what 고기 means in Korean? Meat, yes, beautiful. So I meat, don't eat. Or I meat, eat, don't, literally, in Korean. Or I don't eat meat. Okay. Remember that in Korean, the verb always goes last, and the object, the thing that you're doing, goes in the middle, goes before the verb. So I don't eat meat. All right. B is, what is 먹지? 먹지 is a combination of two things. So the first part is 먹, that comes from the verb 먹다, which means to eat. So that comes from the verb, and then this 지 않아요, this part actually goes together. That means to not do something. So Korean is an agglutinative language, which means that its verbs stack together. So you have this base verb, this base morpheme it's called, and then you stack things onto it. That's how Korean works. In this case, this base morpheme is this 먹 that comes from the verb to eat, and then 지않다 means to not do. The book name, the book is the Level 1 workbook. This is the cover, it is linked in this live stream, it's also in our profile and on our website. All right, so B says 저는 피자를 만들지 않아요. Roxana, yes, beautiful, thank you. So 만들지 않아요, also we had this up here, right? It means to not make something. And what is it they don't make? It's pizza, which is pizza in Korean. They don't have a Z sound, a Z sound, so it's usually written as a J sound in Korean. So 피자, I don't make pizza. I don't make pizza. All right. C. 소피는 커피를 마시지 않아요. What is this 마시지 않아요? What does that mean? We haven't had this verb yet. Does anyone know what this part means? 마시지 않아요. We have this, it has these two parts. First is the verb stem part, and then we have the 지 않아요 part. Doesn't drink, Lara, perfect, thank you. This means doesn't drink. And what does she not drink? It's coffee, 커피. So Sophie or Sophie doesn't or does not drink coffee. Sophie does not drink coffee. Can present tense also mean I'm not making pizza? Yes, it can. So the present tense in Korean is slightly ambiguous in that it can mean the present habitual, like, I make pizza, I don't make pizza. It can also mean the present continuous, like I am making pizza or I'm not making pizza. It depends on context, and it can mean either. So all these sentences could mean I'm not eating meat, I'm not making pizza, and Sophie isn't drinking coffee. They could all be that meaning as well. Sort of confusingly, it can also mean the future tense in certain situations. So this could mean I'm not going to make pizza. Like if you're talking about tomorrow, you could say like 고기를 먹지 않아요, or I'm not eating pizza tomorrow. So it can mean any of those situations. Keep that in mind. And this we're just going to stick to kind of a basic way, but yes, it can mean any of them. Okay, and D, 톰은 책을 읽지 않아요. 읽지 않아요. We have another verb here. So what is this one? What does 읽지 않아요 mean? 읽지 않아요. We have the 지 않아요 part, which we probably recognize now means don't. Doesn't read. Emma, Melissa, yes. That means it doesn't read. And what does he not read? What is the thing he doesn't read? It is 책. 책 is what he does not read. 책 in Korean is books. So Tom doesn't read books. All right. Tom does not read books. Okay. So we've done some translating from Korean into English. Let's now go the other way around and go from English into Korean. So A is I don't work. So how do you say I don't work in Korean? Well, we'll start with the I because that's easy. We can just put 저는, I. Now this working part, what you need to know is what is the verb to work in Korean. Does anyone know what the verb to work is? Does anyone remember? It's a fairly common verb. How do you pronounce the ik? So this part here is, it depends what comes after it. So in this case, it's followed by this G. So it's actually pronounced like this. Ik G, like this, ik G. But if you have this, 읽어요, which is the present tense, then it's pronounced 읽어요 like this. So I'm not going to get too much into this right now. It comes down to these things in Korean called sound change rules, and these are rules that you can learn that determine, depending on the combinations of vowels and consonants, these sound changes happen when you're pronouncing words, and there are quite a few of them, but if you're interested, I recommend you look up Korean sound change rules and you'll learn more about that. Okay. And yes, I did see people talk about the verb to work, so thank you for writing that down. It is 일하다. 일하다 is to work in Korean. And how does this become I don't work? Well, we have to attach our G anta to it, which is 일하지 않아요. 저는 일하지 않아요. Means I don't work. I'm talking about myself. Do I use 나는 or 저는 or 내가? So it depends on context, unfortunately. The main difference between 나는 and 저는 is that 나는 is more casual and 저는 is more formal. So in this book, we primarily use more formal language, so we use 저는. If you are speaking more casually, if you're talking to people that were very close to you, or people who are much younger than you, or even to animals, you can use 나는. But here we are using 저는. But it depends on context. Okay. So, B, I don't watch television. All right. So, I again, so we're going to start with 저는 because that's the easy part. 저는. Why do you remove the 타? So, the 타 is kind of a placeholder in Korean. So, if you look up any verb in Korean in the dictionary, all the verbs will end with this 타 on the end. But it's kind of a placeholder. It's kind of telling you that we call this kind of dictionary form, it's kind of like a pairing mode. The verb is there waiting to be conjugated, and pretty much always, actually every single time that you're conjugating a verb in Korean, what you do is you remove the 타, and then you work with what is left. So removing this 타 is kind of the first step you always do when conjugating, and this 타 itself doesn't really have any meaning or any sort of purpose. It's just there to hold the place, to tell you that this verb is in its dictionary form. Okay, and yes, this book is for beginners, although we are over halfway through, so we are kind of moving away from pure beginner. We're still in the beginner stage, but we're not right at the beginning, if that makes sense. Can you replace it with G? And if so, what does the G mean? So you are kind of replacing the 타 with G with this specific conjugation, but it depends. Different verb conjugations are different. This G is specific to this negative form, but then depending on what conjugation you're doing, you would attach different things. What book am I using? This is the Level 1 workbook. This is the cover right here. This is linked in this live stream and in our profile. You can find it on our website. Okay. Do you have to pay for the book? Well, yes. Yeah, you do. You don't have to, though. You can also enjoy these live streams if you would rather. But yes, we do have it for sale. It's not free. Okay. B. I don't watch television, so 저는. Now, the full way to write television in Korean is television, but I'm lazy, so I'm just going to write TB. TB isn't really proper Korean. It's more kind of casual in spoken language, but I'm lazy. So 저는 TV를. Now to watch is 보다. We had it up here. 보다 means to see or watch. So it comes 보지 않아요. 저는 TV를 보지 않아요. I don't watch TV. Okay. Number C. I don't like alcohol. Okay, so this is a good one. We've got some new verbs here to talk about. The first important one to know is the word for alcohol. Does anyone know what the word for alcohol is in Korean? Abby, I see your question. I'm going to get to that. I'm going to answer that very soon. It's a great question. 술, yes. 술 is alcohol. So, 저는 술. Now, Abby had a question. She was asking, what is this lil? What is this thing going on here? What does lil mean? Now, the answer to that is it's what's called the object particle. It's called the object particle. And the object particle is either or lil. You attach if the noun ends on a consonant, and you attach lil if the noun ends on a vowel. So this is what this is. This is an object particle. And what does it do? Well, all it does is it connects the noun to the verb. So this is the verb to watch, right? But how do you know what that person's watching? What are they watching? The way you can tell is that it's tied to this noun here. So this object particle tells you that TV is the thing that you are watching. Okay, so the question is, can you use other particles instead? What if you use the subject particle? So that's an interesting question. Let's try it for a second. Okay, 저는 술이 보지 않아요. Is this a good sentence in Korean? What does the sentence mean? What happens if you use the subject particle here? Is this correct? If so, like, what does it mean? Or is it wrong? Have a think about it. If you use the emphasis the subject, it sounds wrong, but I don't know why. It is wrong. So what the subject particle does is it tells you who is doing the action. So if you say, for example, if I just take out 저는 just for simplicity, if I say 술이 보지 않아요, it means that the alcohol is doing the action of watching something, because alcohol is the subject. It's the one doing the thing. So this alcohol is not seeing, is what this literally means. The alcohol does not see, which does not make sense, right? Because alcohol is an object that cannot see anything. It doesn't make sense. Alcohol cannot view things. It has to be the object particle. Why? Because it has to be the object of the verb. Alcohol can be, why am I using 보다? It's supposed to be to like. 좋아하지 않아요. I was looking at the one above. 좋아하지. Okay. So again, if we have E here, 술이, if we make it the subject, it means that the alcohol does not like something. The alcohol does not like, which again doesn't make sense, right? Because alcohol cannot like things, but it can be liked. Alcohol can be the object of liking. It cannot be the subject of liking. Is it an erasable pen? Yes. It is an erasable pen. My friend got it for me for a birthday present. You can see the name here if you want to find it. Can I also just say 안 좋아해요? Yes, you can just say 안 좋아해요. That's also perfectly correct. 안 좋아해요 is slightly more common in spoken language. So 술을 좋아하지 않아요 means I don't like alcohol. 저는 술을 좋아하지 않아요. Is for consonants? Yes. Is for nouns ending on consonant sounds. Okay. Let's do D. D is coffee isn't tasty. So how do we say this? Well, so this now, okay, we'll look at this. This is maybe a little bit tricky. So we're going to start with coffee, right? We're talking about coffee. Now, tricky question. Which particle do we need here? Which particles do we need to use? We're saying that coffee is not tasty. So in order to know which particle you need, you have to think about what verb is in the sentence. So in all of these sentences before, you know, liking alcohol, watching television, these are actions that you do. These are actions that you do. But coffee isn't tasty is not an action. It's a description of the coffee. It's a slightly different type of sentence. So we use the subject particle or the topic particle. You can use either one, but 커피를 is not correct because tasty is not an action. The object particle is used with actions that you do, seeing, eating, watching, studying. Those are actions that use the object particle. Descriptions use the subject or topic particles. So coffee isn't tasty. 커피가 or 커피는 맛있지 않아요. 맛있지 않아요. What's the difference between 가 and 는? There is not a simple answer to that I can say right now, unfortunately. It depends on context. There's a lot of different ways that they are different and similar as well. I do recommend, if you want to learn about it, to go and maybe watch some YouTube videos that will explain more about it, but I'm not going to talk about it too much right now. In this sort of simple sentence, you can use either one. Okay. And, excuse me, lucky last, E. And L is for a verb. It's and L is for nouns that are being acted upon by verbs. So this object particle here shows that this noun, TV or television, is being acted upon by, hang on.
Hi. Hello. Just hopefully the last time.
Okay.
We swapped your unit out with another one.
That's why I was here to help with the grunt labor.
That's fine.
So we got it on the vacuum pump right now. So we got them switched out from a vacant, and it's on the vacuum pump. So everything's wired up. So hopefully
Hopefully in an hour or so you'll have some cooling.
Okay.
Maybe 2, but here soon.
hopefully in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Bye. Okay, my apologies, I have returned. I've got some problem with my AC and there's some maintenance guys coming in and out trying to fix it. Anyway, what were we talking about? So, 커피는, 커피가 마시지 않아요, and I don't drink tea. I don't drink tea. So, we have to know what the word is for tea. Ooh. Does anyone know what the word for tea is? Tea in Korean. Cha, yes. Cha. Cha. We have the subject I, which is 저는. And now we have our object cha. Now, which particle do we need to use here? Which particle do we attach to cha? Do we use the object particle? Do we use the subject particle? Do we use the topic particle? Have a think about it. And I see a lot of people saying the correct answer, which is lir. How do you know that it's lir? Well, it's because we're doing an action. When you're doing an action on an object, you use the object particle. So, 차를. And then, to not drink, you take the verb 마시다, which means to drink, and then you attach our G on 요. 저는 차를 마시지 않아요. I do not drink tea. Can it also be tea? You could probably say tea and I think people would likely understand you with the amount of kind of English that's in Korean nowadays. To be safe, I would say cha, unless it's like in the name. Sometimes sometimes you might see like peppermint tea like on signs and stuff. But yeah, the Korean way is cha. But if you say tea in context, people would probably know what you mean as well. Okay. All right. Next, let's do some multiple choice questions. All right. The first one, A, the G-anta grammar form is attached to nouns or to verbs. Is it 1 to nouns or is it 2 to verbs? Cha means car too, right? Yes. Cha also means car. It can mean either. If you want to be specific, you can say 자동차, which means literally like automatic car. But yes, cha means both noun, car and tea. The answer here, of course, is to verbs. G-anta attaches to verbs. B. When using G-anta with separable hada verbs, G-anta is placed 1 before the verb, 2 in the middle of the verb, or 3 at the end of the verb. So if you were here last time when we learned about an, we learned that an with separable hada verbs has to be placed in the middle of the verb. And a separable hada verb is things like 운동하다 and 공부하다. So if you use an with these grammar forms, you have to separate them with the an in the middle. But G-anta, you do not have to do that. It's a little simpler in that way than an. It just goes at the end of the verb. G-anta does not discriminate. It always attaches the same way to all verbs. Okay. C. To say something is not some description or that one does not do some action, you use 1, an, 2, G-anta, or 3, either of the above. So how do you say something is not some description or that one does not do some action? Yeah, you can use either. Both are correct. Either of the above are fine. They mean essentially the same thing. The only difference really is that an is slightly more casual and G-anta is slightly more formal. An is slightly more used in conversation, like spoken language, and G-anta is slightly more used in writing, but they are very, very similar. They mean the same thing. Okay, and I just gave away the answer to D. Compared to an, the G-anta grammar form is 1. So G-anta is 1, slightly more formal and more commonly used in written language, or 2, slightly more casual and more commonly used in spoken language. Can you put the book in the frame at the end so I can take a screenshot? Yes, you can take a screenshot right now if you like. Here it is. Feel free to take a screenshot so you can look it up later. And yeah, like I said, it is linked in this live stream. It's also on our website. You can find it through our profile on TikTok. Okay, and yes, G-anta is slightly more formal. So we know the answer to that now. Is this available on Coupang? No, I don't believe so. I wish it was, but no, I don't think so. If you are out of the US, we do have a PDF version available if you prefer. You can just buy the PDF. You could even print it yourself if you want. Keep in mind though that it is, 170 odd pages, so keep that in mind. E. Which of the following is a correct translation of the food is not good? 1. 음식이 안 좋아요. 2. 음식은 안 좋아요. 3. 음식은 좋지 않아요. Or 4. All of the above are correct translations. Which of the following are correct? So these two use an, which we learnt about in the previous lesson. And then we have some different particles, e versus in. So what is the correct translation? Well, actually the correct answer is you can do any of them. Any of them are fine. All of the above are correct. They could all mean the food is not good. The difference between an and chorcianta we learnt about earlier is they mean the same, it's just one slightly more formal. And then the difference between I, ka, and nin, again, is slightly nuanced, but in this context, it doesn't make a big difference. So it's either of them, any of them are fine. They are all used in slightly different contexts, but they're all correct, grammatically correct sentences that mean the food is not good. Okay. So now we have a challenge question. This is a challenge question. So if you say, to say nobody uses 2 and 3 in Korea, yeah, people are saying this is the most common. And yeah, we do generally teach that if you're describing something, then the basic way to do it is use the subject particle. So if you're talking about the food is not good, if you're describing something as being some way, it's generally most natural to use the subject particle. But yes, I mean, it doesn't mean I don't like the food rather than the food is not good. I mean, even in English, if you think about the difference between I don't like the food and the food is not good, I mean, there's a considerable overlap, I would say. I don't know that there's a huge difference in meaning between those two sentences. I mean, yes, there's different words involved, but like, you're talking about the food that you don't like it / that it's not good, so it's kind of very similar if you know what I mean. I mean, I don't want to get into, I don't know, too much detail here, but I don't like the food's not good. Pretty similar sentences, I would say. Okay. This challenge question. To say that a noun is not something, e.g., this is not a book, you can use an, gianta, 이가 아니에요, or any of the above. So, if we learned about an and gianta, 이가 아니에요 we learnt earlier in this book. So, yeah, you might not be familiar with this grammar form, but if you've been working your way through the book, then you will be familiar with this grammar form. And the correct answer is this one. So a key difference between like these ones, an and gianta versus 이가 아니에요. An and gianta are used to talk about not doing actions. I don't eat, I don't sleep, I don't drink. Yeah, so you cannot use an and gianta to say something is not something else. To say that it's not a book, it's not my cat, it's not my hat. You don't use an and gianta for them. An and gianta are used for not doing actions. But you do use 이가 아니에요. This is the grammar form that you use to say something is not something else. So if you want to say, I am not a man, or I am not Korean, or this is not a book, you use 이가 아니에요. So depending on the sentence you have, you choose between these different forms. They are not interchangeable. And the answer is 이가 아니에요. All right. So the last exercise we're going to do is we are going to look at combining gianta with the past tense. So all of the sentences we've been doing so far have been using the present tense, but what about the past tense? By the way, this is the name of the book. It is the Level 1 workbook. This is what the cover looks like. You can take a screenshot if you want to save it for later. Okay. So, how do we say I didn't work in the past? Yes, Level 1 workbook. You're welcome. So, to do this, we need to know the verb to work, which is 일하다. And then we need to know how to conjugate 하다 verbs into the past tense, which is actually pretty simple. Becomes 했어요. But actually, we don't need to know that because we're using it with gianta. So what we need to know is how gianta goes into the present tense, which is G. Does anyone know? Have a think about it. How do you put Dancing himi, yes, good job. Perfect. An as o yo. Ji 않았어요. And again, if you need to practice these these tense conjugations, they are earlier in the book, but it becomes ji 않았어요. That means it was not something. So I didn't work is 저는 일 하지 않았어요. 저는 일하지 않았어요. Beautiful. Means I didn't work in the past. What about I didn't eat lunch yesterday? Does anyone know the word for yesterday in Korean? The word for yesterday. 어제. Beautiful. Thank you. 어제. So, 저는 어제. And you can say 어제 저는 or 저는 어제. Both are fine. But just to keep it consistent, I'm going to say 저는 어제. 점심 is lunch. And we need to use the object particle because we're doing an action, eating, right? 어제 점심을 먹지 않았어요. 어제 점심을 먹지 않았어요. I didn't eat lunch yesterday. Okay. C. Tom didn't read the book. All right. We have a new subject, Tom. Tom은. He didn't read the book, so we got to go with the book next. Check. Tom은 check. So again, we need to use the object particle because we're doing an action, reading. Tom은 책을 읽지 않았어요. Tom didn't read the book. Okay. Next we have Mary didn't make pizza yesterday. Wouldn't you always use 않았어 and not 않았어? Yes, correct, Shohag. Yes, correct. Because this always ends on this sound, this 않았어요, it always becomes as어요. It never becomes 않았어요. It's always 않았어요. Yeah. Mary didn't make pizza yesterday. All right. Mary는 yesterday, 어제. Pizza is pizza, and we need the object particle, right? Because to make is an action verb. It's an action that you do. 어제 메리는, or 메리는 어제 피자를 만들지 않았어요. 만들지 않았어요. I didn't make pizza yesterday. Or Mary, yesterday pizza, make, did not. When the heat meets the digit, what sound does it make? I can't remember. I'm trying to think of an example of that. Like, a heat meets a digit. Oh, you're thinking about this heat here? I'm not sure. So generally the heat, like in a verb like gianta, for example, it's just, you don't pronounce the heat at all. It's just gianta, like this. The heat just goes away. That's how it's pronounced. And actually I think this ta becomes aspirated, or double gianta, like this, I think. But I'm not 100% sure on that. But yeah, the heat is just silent. Okay. Sophie didn't meet a friend. Is it like a tiet? Anta? Anta. I'm not sure if it's this or this. Would you use also if you were using a verb that ended with yes? If with an, yeah. So if you had a verb like 안 먹었어요, for example, because you're adding the 어서요 directly to the verb stem, it becomes 먹었어요. Yeah. Aspirated digit is tiet, yes. I don't remember what's sung digit is that one's name. Okay. Question. What is the verb to meet in Korean? It's 지않다? Okay. We can add that. I wasn't sure between those two. 지않다. 만나다, yes. 만나다 is to meet in Korean. And so to become the past tense, we take off our ta and it becomes 만나지 않았어요. So 소피는 어제, yesterday. A friend. A friend in Korean is 친구. 친구. And 친구 is a noun, ends on a vowel sound. And to meet is an action, so we use the object particle because meeting is an action that you do. So 어제 친구를 만나지 않았어요. Do you guys have a YouTube page? Yes, we do have a YouTube page, and I do upload recordings of these live streams to YouTube. Sophie didn't meet a friend yesterday. Excuse me. 소피는 어제 친구를 만나지 않았어요. Does time stuff always go near the beginning? It usually goes towards the beginning, but you can move these words around without it making it, too complicated. Like you can say 어제 소피는 친구를 만나지 않았어요. But this object, the object usually you try and keep close to the verb. So it might be a little bit strange to say like 소피는 친구를 만나지 어제 않았어요. It would be wrong. You could say 소피는 친구를 어제 만나지 않았어요. You could say that. But yeah, generally towards the start. Okay. Grammar combination. 지않다 and 을 것이다. So we've done the past tense. Now let's do the future tense, which is adding 을 것이다, which becomes 을 거예요 in the present tense. Well, confusing. In the casual polite formality. Is it true that 을 can be omitted when speaking? Yes, it is true. It is frequently done to drop the particles when you're speaking, especially if it's pretty clear from context what's going on. You don't need the particles. So it's common to drop them. I do caution people against just always dropping the particles because sometimes you do need them. Sometimes they do really help to make your sentence clear. But if you're comfortable, if you're confident, you can drop them. And it is commonly done. Okay. So I didn't work was 저는 일하지 않았어요. What about I will not work? I will not work. 지 않을 거예요. Beautiful, thank you. Yes, perfect. It is 지 않을 거예요. 저는 일하지 않을 거예요. 저는 일하지 않을 거예요. I will not work. Okay. I will not exercise. Does anyone know what the verb to exercise is in Korean? To exercise. It's one of the key vocab words for this chapter. Yes, perfect. Juju. Delhi. Yes. 운동하다. 운동하다 is to exercise or to work out. So how do you say I will not exercise? You can say, start with 저는. me, I 운동 하지 않을 거예요. I will not exercise. Is 것이다 an irregular verb? Why does it become 거예요? Yes, kind of. Yes, essentially. Yep. Okay, C. Sarah will not study Korean. Sarah will not study Korean. Can you do the same sentence with an? Certainly. So if you're going to say I will not exercise but use an, it would be 저는 운동 안 할 거예요. So 먹을게요 is a different grammar form. 게요 is actually a different grammar form that means something else. When you use 게요, it's like I will do that kind of in a response to something else. Like if someone tells you like, you know, like, can you eat lunch later? You'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, 먹을게요. Like I'll eat for you kind of in a response. It's a different grammar form. This 거예요 is the present, is the future tense. Why can't we use 하다? 하다 is a different grammar form again. And 하다 by itself is kind of not a complete sentence. If you just leave the grammar form or the verb in 하다 form, it's not really complete. You haven't conjugated the verb. And if you're going to, back to the original question about an, if you use an, remember that 운동하다 is a separable 하다 verb. So that's why an has to go in the middle. We learnt about this in the an chapter. Whereas 지않다 does not have to go in the middle, it just attaches to the end. So 저는 운동 안 할 거예요 and 저는 운동하지 않을 거예요. These are equivalent expressions. Okay. Yeah, and 먹을 거야, that is casual language. So if you're speaking very casually, if you're speaking to people much younger than you, speaking to animals, speaking to out loud to yourself, you can use 먹을 거야, but it's casual language. Yes. And yeah, 안을게요 is a different grammar form. Okay. C. Sarah will not study Korean. Sarah will not study Korean. To study in Korean is 공부하다. So, Sarah는 will not study. So, 공부, to not do, 하지 않다 is to not do. And we have 거예요 for the future tense. You can say, you might see 않을 거예요. You might see this being used, which is the 에 instead of the 예. This is actually technically incorrect Korean, but it's a really common spelling mistake that even native speakers do, to the point where, like, if you said this, I mean, it's one of those little things, right? Like, it's not technically correct, but it's very common, especially because usually when you're saying this, you don't usually say 거예요, you say 거예요. So because it kind of sounds like this, people kind of write it like this. It's technically an improper spelling, but it's pretty common to see people use this. Just keep in mind, it's not technically correct. Okay, D. I won't read a book tomorrow. I won't read a book tomorrow. 저는 내일, tomorrow, 저는 내일. Book, check, and check ends on a consonant, and to read is an action that you do, so we need the object particle, 책을 읽지 않을 거예요. Yeah, KO is a different grammar form, yes. It's used for a different purpose. This 거예요 is the future tense. 저는 내일 책을 읽지 않을 거예요. Beautiful, Minkia. That's a great sentence. 저는 내일 or 내일 저는 책을 읽지 않을 거예요. If we're going to use an with this sentence, it would be 저는 내일 책을 안 읽을 거예요. 안 읽을 거예요. Okay, and lucky last, E, Mom won't make bread tomorrow. Mom won't make bread tomorrow. Mom is 엄마, and then bread. Does anyone know what bread is in Korean? Bread. It is 빵. MG, yes, 빵. So, 엄마는 tomorrow, 내일, bread, 빵. Now, 빵 ends on a consonant sound, and it to make is an action that you do, so we need the object particle. 빵을 won't make. First, we start with the verb, which is the 만들다 verb. 만들, add our 지않다, which is the negative form. 만들지 않. And then the future tense. 고, 요. 엄마는 내일 빵을 만들지 않을 거예요. So see how we've managed to go from very short, simple expressions. We've combined things to make a much longer, more developed sentence. We've learned how to use the past tense and the future tense. We've used all sorts of different verbs and nouns. So we've come a long way. Good job. This is pretty much the end of what I'll do in this live stream. We do have a dictation exercise here, which I won't do right now, but make sure if you get the book to make sure you do these dictation exercises. They're really useful. You're using SOV. Yes, that is the Korean sentence structure, subject, object, verb. So this dictation exercise, you listen to the track and then you write down what you hear. So definitely do this exercise. Is this a daily live? No, it's a weekly live, every Friday. And there is also a reading exercise. So if you get this book, read this little paragraph and see if you can understand what's going on. It's a very good and helpful Korean class. Thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Okay, so that brings us to the end of 지않다. Again, if you want to go back and watch this again, I will post the recording up on YouTube. If you want to go back and watch previous live streams, you can do that as well on our YouTube channel. And of course, if you're interested in the book, you can definitely get it. 정말 고마워요. 감사합니다. Thank you, everybody. Can we get the book online? Yes, absolutely. So we have the book for sale through Amazon and through TikTok Shop. We also sell it via our website in paperbacks, but you can also get PDF versions as well. If you prefer to have a digital copy, you can get the PDF. Thank you for the rose. I appreciate you. If you are outside of the US, if you're in the US, probably Amazon's your best bet. If you're outside of the US, I would check for an Amazon store in your country first, and if you can't find it or if the shipping's too expensive, you can try getting it the PDF instead. I think you enjoyed learning a lot. Thank you guys so much. I'm glad you guys had a good time and learned something, and if you want to come back again next time, I will be doing 못. So this is what we will be doing next Friday, is 못. Which is for talking about things you can't do. So up until now, I've talked about things that you don't do. Next week, we're going to talk about how you can say that you can't do something. 네, 감사합니다. Thank you for the class, very informative. Thank you. I appreciate you guys. So yeah, if you enjoyed it, follow us on TikTok. Come back next week. I'll be back at the same time, which is an hour before now, so 5 p.m. Eastern time. And I go from 5 to 6 approximately. And yeah, I'll see you guys later. Thank you guys for being here. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. The YouTube link, search for Goose Apple Books in YouTube. You'll find us. Just search for Goose Apple Books, or even just Goose Apple. Goose Apple should turn us up. You should be able to find us. Yeah. Okay, and yeah, have a wonderful Friday. Have a wonderful evening. Have a wonderful weekend. And I'll see you guys next time. Ta me bao. See you next time. Bye. Thank you, everybody.